Well, good morning, evening, wherever it is. Sharon, Lois, and Bram. I love you in the morning and in the afternoon. I love you in the evening and underneath the moon. Skimmeridinky-dinky-ding, skimmeridinky-doo. Welcome to Calling from the Wilderness, November edition. CFTW, if you're looking for us online, or We Are Calling, I think is another one we're known by, or those two hunks.
Yeah.
Um, we go by many names.
Yeah. I can neither having never looked it up, I can neither confirm nor deny that if you
Yeah,
looked up those two hunks, you would ever find us.
you would.
Um,
I'm pretty sure. So I've never looked it up either, but
yeah.
I said it. It's online, so it must be true.
Must be true. Must be true. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't need to
I
fact
think I think
check.
you might. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I think you might be the next president of the United States of America,
Fake
if I'm
news.
not mistaken. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
If it is
Oh,
two hunks and we're on it, then that's all because of me. And if it's not there, then
it's
that's
my
the
fault.
media coming after us and hindering truth.
We've been shut down by big tech.
Big tech.
Um,
Elon Musk has
yeah.
taken away our blue check marks and charging us,
Oh
and now
man.
we can't go by the two hunks. It's a shame.
Now,
Anyway,
where is freedom of speech? Like, where? That's all I got to say. Where?
we didn't have it,
Yeah.
but it's funny how people are like freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want, but they don't realize there's consequences to freedom of speech. Like you can say whatever you
Mm.
want, but it doesn't mean you're free from consequences,
Mm.
right?
I,
Like
I yeah, I heard something. I think it was in the last couple of weeks. I was listening to something, and the person was talking about like how like freedom of speech has stopped being about like the power to protest unjust
the
or
oppressor.
oppressive regimes,
Yeah,
and it's about saying hateful things towards other human beings. And
yeah,
they were just like, I think those are actually two very different things, and it needs to be okay to tell somebody that to like say homophobic or racist or just hateful things is actually not freedom of speech. That's just wrong, and that's
yeah.
okay.
You're just being an a hole.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. Well,
Anyway,
let's. Yeah, there we go. There
get
we
into
go.
this. Yeah.
Can
So
I was just gonna say I'll shift us or shift our gears a little bit for
okay.
us as we head in. For those of you who joined us last week, we had a bit of time where we were reflecting on Eston College, or as it was back in the day, the Full Gospel Bible Institute and the Full Gospel Bible College, and soon to be moving to a new home in Regina. And we were reminiscing and talking about kind of those kind of surface reactions as well as kind of the more reflective things, but it finds us actually in a season in the church, which is a season of remembrance, tomorrow being itself Remembrance Day, the 11th of November. And but also too, we actually started this kind of section of the church year with All Saints and All Souls remembrance, and then we're heading into kind of looking once again to start the calendar year again in Advent. And so this whole kind of season for us, November, in many ways, is a month of remembrance and looking back and reflecting on things. And today, Derek's going to start us off in a bit of a reflection here. Um, and in a personal reflection, which I know he'll share a little bit more. But I just invite you all at this time of year, as kind of the clocks have gone back and the day seems shorter and darker, and we find ourselves kind of already minds spinning towards things such as Advent and Christmas and things like that. It's just, this is a time to actually take a breath and think back into and to remember those things that have gone before us. And to, as I was at a school assembly this morning, and just encouraging the kids that actually acts of remembrance aren't just intellectual exercises, but they're actually the things that are meant to help instill in us new ways of being in the world based on the things that we have learned and the things that we're remembering and we're reflecting. So this is part of what we're going to be holding this space today together, and I hope that it becomes a remembrance, or a space of healthy, life-giving, life-changing remembrance for you, as we share our journey together. So I hope that's all right as a little introduction, Derek.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And if you'd like to, yeah, over to you.
So, as if you watch the show, you know that my nana watches us. She hasn't figured out commenting yet, but I'll get emails and texts and phone calls from her later. On Tuesday, her husband, my grandpa, passed away. He had been dealing with dementia and some other things. He got COVID, and then never really recovered from it, and passed away, which he was in a lot of pain and wasn't really himself. So it's a good thing. Um, but the last few days, I've been thinking about him and his impact on me. I'd like to share a little bit about who this man was, because he was unreal. Dennis O'Hare uh, was Scottish. He came. He was a man who loved soccer. He loved crosswords. He loved um, crib, and he loved God. He was a devout Catholic. Didn't eat meat on Fridays. Went to every mass. When you think of like steadfast, when you think of faithful, that's him. Whatever your definition is, um, that was him. He he when we would go out and he would order food, he would never eat more than what made him full. Like, if you get a big order, you eat
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, I'm stuffed afterwards. He wouldn't do that because that was gluttony. If he had bad service, he would tip more because the server's obviously having a bad day. Just unreal stuff like that. Like he would play in a men's indoor soccer league, and he would invite me, and I'd go with him and sit on the bench with the guys and kick the ball around during in between halves. Um, he bought when I played soccer. He bought me some gloves, some goalie gloves, and took me out to the backyard and would kick soccer balls at me and always told me jokes. Always had jokes, and dry like British humor kind of jokes. Um, but he was just life. Like, he was a solid man who never wavered, but also encouraged others and supported others and blessed others, um, without even thinking about, like, that was just the Christian thing to do. That was just who he was. And when I think about him and all the stuff he'd done for me, I want to be that person. Like, um, as we think about Eston and Remembrance Day, and we're in this time of remembering the past and stuff that's happened. I'm really challenged that when I pass and people look at me, what kind of impact will they say? Um, what kind of um, I don't know, legacy is the right word, but what kind of impact will they say? Or even now, like we're talking about Eston, change gears a little bit. Eston, and we're talking about all the fond memories and stuff. But what about in 10 years when people are talking about my time here? Are they going to say the same stuff? Um, or wherever I end up next? What? Yeah, he was such an amazing guy, and challenged me. Not in that he would challenge me verbally, but challenge me because he lived such a godly, steadfast life that being near that made you want to be like that. And never sought the limelight, never did it for himself. It was always not knowing what your left hand was doing. But just anything you needed, you like you did have to ask him because he was already offering.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I don't mean
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
financial or whatever, but like
Yeah.
you knocked something over and he was the first one there to help you pick it up. You needed help
Mm.
moving something. He was there, and
Mm.
it's sad because dementia took him and he wasn't the same man he was. Couldn't remember things,
Mm.
and so you're remembering the good stuff he was. But yeah, it was just a he will be missed, and the world
Mm.
is not a brighter place with him not in it.
Mm. Mm.
That's for sure. And so
Mm.
yeah, I would challenge all of us now to, well, first of all, if there's people in your life that are like that, and reach out to
Mm.
them, tell them you love them, tell them the impact.
Mm.
Um, but also think about your legacy. Are you the first one to help? Are you the one that will support
Mm.
self control? Like, do you
Mm.
are you living what you say, whatever that may be? You're just
Mm.
devoted, like such a devoted person, and it's rare to see that. And yeah,
Mm.
and so compassionate and
Yeah.
caring. I remember growing up evangelical. I was talking to him, and I was under the impression that Catholics weren't saved. So I was talking to him about salvation and stuff, and just his graciousness during that whole time, right, was just amazing. Even
Mm.
when I was being dumb. So
Yeah.
yeah, just
Yeah.
just
Well,
a great, great
yeah.
man.
I'll say on behalf of myself and anyone else who listens regularly,
Yeah,
we send our condolences to you
yeah.
and particularly
Nana.
to Nana.
Yeah,
We're sorry for your loss, and
yeah,
by as we pray, when for anyone is, by the mercy of God, may Dennis rest in peace and may he rise in glory. And we
yeah.
look forward to that day when we are all reunited with all the faithful
Hmm.
in God's eternal kingdom, whatever shape and that might take. So, but
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's yeah. Thank you, Derek, for sharing as well. I
Yeah,
know, like, the but I think it's so funny too because we look at and we know as human beings kind of what legacies matter, in a sense of like we don't remember people's bank accounts, or the things that they had.
yeah,
We remember what they gave away, right? Like
yeah,
people are remembered for their philanthropy, not for the amount of money they've stashed away. We remember people for the time that they have dedicated and the moments that they spent with people, like even a couple months ago at the death of the Queen. And what was interesting is the amount of stories that came out about how people felt when they met her, was like this woman who was like deeply present to them in that moment,
yeah,
and like she would take time to look people in the eyes, to respond in a way that let them know that she actually heard what they were talking about,
yeah.
to engage with them as human beings. And yes, obviously there's a whole other side of things which does need, we don't just kind of gloss over the bigger situation, of that, of kind of the limelight and things like that. But the things that people remember, and I always say to people, of all the funerals I've done, the ones that have been the most impactful have not been the ones of the wealthy, but the
Yeah.
ones who had invested themselves into other people. And it was the people who came to give thanks, to remember, and to and yeah and to kind of celebrate both that life, and also promise to be a part of that legacy.
Mm.
And I think, like, for us, that's you know one of the things I think is really central to the acts of remembrance, which is kind of what I was saying at the beginning too, is like that our remembrance shows that we're listening, we are learning, and we are changing. And that's like the ultimate kind of tribute, right? Is like, as you say, like your tribute to Dennis isn't just being able to say these stories, but is finding yourself being able to be that same
Mm.
person in somebody else's story,
Mm-hmm.
because of the man he was to you.
Yeah.
Because and I think, it's so funny too, because like at the heart of Christian worship is the sacrament of the Eucharist, or Holy Communion, which is a part where Jesus says, "Do this in remembrance of me."
Mm.
And yet
Mm.
we, and that kind of, centrally we come, and Jesus is saying, like, this is my body, this is my blood, this is for forgiveness of sins, this is for the life of the world, do this in remembrance of me. And if
Mm.
we think it's only about actually taking bread and wine, then we completely miss out on the fact that it's about what the bread and the wine are transformed into for our life, that the world
Mm.
itself may be transformed by the love and beauty and goodness of God.
Mm.
And yet we've kind of, our remembrance of it is often much less about, what it calls, and what it calls into being, or calls into us, and much more about just have we done it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and obviously, like, those things do matter, but they matter in only that they become incarnate in the rest of our lives, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
they become not just the words of testimony, but the lives of testimony. And as you say, like, the world is in some ways, that darker place now that, Dennis has died. And
Mm.
yet in some ways it's the way that the light then gets dispersed between more people. So what was once a single flame is now
Yeah.
multiple flames spread out in the lives of
Mm-hmm.
those. And that light then gets to be, shared wider, and given out, in a broader way. It makes you wonder too, like, who was the, I was thinking, like, who was his inspiration,
Yeah.
who was the light, and the person who gave him the confidence to be able to be that person in a world that doesn't always value that doesn't put meaning and importance to it in the same way. And
Yeah.
yet we all desperately are, we're all we're all attracted to that, and driven by that when we see it in somebody else. So
Yeah. Yeah. I like that Eucharist Remembrance Day. Like it's simple, and I know it, but it just adds just a slightly different context to it, and like almost hits home
mm-hmm.
a little bit more. Like it's yeah, it's almost like Remembrance Day, like you remember the soldiers and what they did, but it's
Mm-hmm.
different if you knew someone that was in the war, right, or have fought a
Yeah.
war or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It hits home a little bit more, and you can remember what Christ did in the
Mm-hmm.
Eucharist, or with the Eucharist, and um, it almost becomes repetition and an obligation instead of a actual reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that like
Mm-hmm.
there's a purpose behind this reminder, like
Mm-hmm.
what like like the transformation said of the
Yeah.
world through Christ's love, and that like this is
Mm-hmm.
what we're about. Like we're we should be Christ, hands and feet to those
Mm-hmm.
around us. Like we are image
Mm-hmm.
bearers. Are we actually living um, that? And it's almost like a realigning, right? Like it's you go on and you live your life, and then that once a month you're like, oh wait, hold on, what? Let's just take time and reflect and make sure where our compass is,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
true north there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, True
Yeah.
north, strong and free. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it
But
yeah,
and
go
I
ahead.
think too, like, it's the same for, like, remembrance, right? Is like,
Yeah,
for me, Remembrance Day for many years was just about, like, making sure we gave thanks for the people who gave their lives that we might have our freedom and our peace, which, absolutely,
yeah,
that is a gift to have been born in a place in the world that we kind of walked into and inherited something that has nothing to do with us,
Hmm.
you can't say anything but thanks, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I don't devalue that, but I think there's that part about like kind of what drove people into that place where a violent protest against an aggressor seemed the only option to bring peace to the world.
Hmm.
And when you start to like revisit some of those things, and again, yeah, of course, when you're like 6, 7, 8 years old, those things aren't
You're
going to be
not thinking about
conversations you're having,
the
right?
oppressors.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I think like the thing is like, it took me until I was in my 30s before I started actually asking, like, why does this matter,
Uh,
and like partly too because like in England we don't have a holiday for Remembrance Day. And remembrance services are very civic in that they're a very kind of cultural thing outside of the church as much as inside,
yeah.
and it can often feel like a glorification of war,
Yeah.
because we're just we're looking at this thing that we've kind of painted over as like good versus evil. We were on the good
Mm,
side.
mm,
After all the death, we won.
yeah.
So at least we say thanks for that, but
Almost an
actually,
angels and demons type of thing, right? Like a
yeah, yeah,
spiritual
yeah,
warfare. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then you have people who be like, there's no such thing as just war, and they're just like, war and violence is never the
Hmm.
answer. And then you find yourself saying, okay, yeah, and then
Yeah.
again, Jesus, Garden of Gethsemane, Peter pulls out his sword to defend Jesus, or his knife to defend Jesus, and Jesus said, that's not the way my kingdom works.
Yeah.
And then he goes into, and then he gets arrested, and you think like, gosh, like there's
He
that
never pulled
whole
out his gun. He never pulled out his gun.
gosh,
As,
you get
as
you get
some as some
you yeah,
elected
some
officials wouldn't make you believe, and that's why he was taken because he
gosh,
never pulled out his
yeah.
gun.
But it is that thing, like as you say, like it's even that is like, violence, like violence begets violence.
Yeah.
It just there's no other, there it literally is no other way around it. We You look at the history of humanity, all our recorded histories, all the work and research that goes into it, and violence just never leaves us anywhere else but with more violence.
Yeah.
And I think like those whole things about like, what does a peaceful protest that actually look like, not just acts of violence to try to maintain or to achieve peace,
Yeah.
but what does actual peace in the world look like? And when we look at that we still fight over these boundaries that we have created in our world,
Yeah.
on land that actually, yeah, how do we determine what's our land and what's somebody else's, and why we own something, and when the earth was the gift to us in the first place? Like it's
Mm,
just, but
mm,
all that say, as you say, like is those moments of remembrance actually are invitations to deeper reflections and deeper
mm,
questioning, and then deeper ways of living in the world. And I just,
mm.
and I
And
guess that's the thing.
remembrance
I
so
look.
it
Okay.
doesn't happen again, right? Like a remembrance
Yeah,
that
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
is an awful point in
yeah, yeah,
human history, and we
yeah,
should
yeah,
strive
yeah,
to not have it happen again. And
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
to be on the side, if you want to be pro life, be on the side of life
yeah,
and
yeah,
not
yeah,
war and
yeah,
sacrifice. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally, totally. And I guess, and I think like that's just part of it for me, as I think about, as you were saying about like time in Eston, is like, it's been interesting to be able to kind of think back and realize how much of who I am has changed because of my time there.
Yeah.
And in the things that shaped me in a way that I didn't kind of fully understand, but also too in some ways that I haven't been paying attention to because I've been so worried about not remembering because it's not a part of my day-to-day life, or
Mm,
not reflecting or thinking back. And actually some of these big moments are actually, beautiful invitations just to pause. And it's not to say, I have to like now go into like, a week of deep meditation and wondering about,
Yeah.
trying to figure out all the 10 things that were most important to me in my life in Eston and how they've made me the man I am today. But at the same time, too, just to be able to say, like, yeah, look back at the friendships, look back at the relationships, look back at the things that kind of molded and shaped me in that time, and just invite that ability of the Spirit of God to make those, or yeah, to, I guess, get to kind of be part of that meaning making as I continue to live my life in a way that holds on to the legacy of that which I've been given, and as you say, that legacy that we hope to leave behind as well.
We might have to hit Aston next week because
Oh yeah,
I want to give it some good time. We don't have a lot of time
yeah.
left. My office is
Sounds like
starting to.
I was like, it sounds like things are starting up in Duncan.
Yeah, well, they got worship practice starting right now, which is right outside the door, and so it's going to get loud here any minute. So I think this is a good
Oh,
time to
that yeah,
close,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then we'll hit Essen. But yeah, just
Cool.
let this remembrance day, and think of individuals that have left, um, have moved on. Let that be like your Eucharist, like a realignment, like just a little. Take some time and think about how. Well, for Remembrance Day, like think about violence and the need to conquer and the human condition, um, but just use those to kind of gauge and um, think about your own life. Maybe you're unreal and awesome, and you're gonna come out uh, being being fantastic. But I'm gonna take this time and I'm gonna think about my own life and the legacy that I'm leaving, and what I want people to remember about me, and that I live a good life, that I am remembered for encouraging others, for um, making others more of who they are created to be, and providing a space for them to do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
here we are. Well, go
here
well,
we are.
everyone. Nice to see you.
Yes. Go
And
well. Go west, young man. As is that Michael W.
I'm
Smith
gonna.
or Chris Chapman? I can't remember. Go
Oh, I
west,
don't know.
young man. Do 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 do. It's one of those 80s,
I
90s
think that
Christian
might have been
songs.
Chapman.
I feel like it
I think
was.
that might have been Chapman. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember the
Ah,
river
well,
one. The
we'll
river
get
is
there.
deep.
We'll get
The
there.
river is wide. River's water is alive. Okay, we did sing this banner over you last week in church, and it was
Yeah.
awesome. So anyway,
Did you get out? Did you get out and flag and bat
we don't
yourself, or
have any. I should make some. I mean,
you should? Yeah.
I did do a little
That can be your
banner over
legacy.
me, banner over. I was doing that in the back, and I had the sound guy doing it too. Love, love, love. Yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
Blessings, everyone.
Amazing.
Toodles.
Take care, everyone, and
Yeah.
take care, Nana.
Yes. Love you. Bye.